Yeah, we'll open the doors up and you can guys kind of look around in there.
Perfect. So just for NCAA regulations, I have a predetermined list of questions that I'm going to be asking Roy. He's just going to kind of talk about everything in depth, try and answer any anticipated questions you guys might have with some of these answers. I think that's...
Well, it's a little interesting with the rules. So we've got to be pretty careful with how we ask the question. So there's a lot of different rules for having Q&A sessions like this, or speaking to groups of prospects and their parents and whatnot at events. So we've just got to be pretty careful. I've done this before, so hopefully I can get a lot of questions answered. If anybody wants to privately ask either Vicky or Molly a question, and then have them ask me, we can certainly do that, and I'll try to answer as many things as we certainly can. So that's the reason for the strangeness on that.
All right. Well, Roy, why don't you? Thanks again for doing this. And
yeah,
why don't
absolutely.
you just kind of introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your life and.
Sure. Well, the first thing is I'd like to welcome everybody here. Some of you I know are local, and some are traveling. This golf course is our home golf course. We play a bunch of different places, but you'll really enjoy the test. So everybody knows too, we had a pretty major flood event here about a month ago, and the golf course, exact amount of rain I cannot remember, but they were in bad shape. Every single bunker was completely washed out, and we hosted our home event about a week after that. And so the staff here has done a phenomenal job in getting things together and coordinated and organized, and it should be a really good test for everybody out here this weekend. We've hosted 4 events here, not counting a regional for the men in 2011, and the women again we hosted in 2012. It became our home golf course in 2009, and we play a bunch of other places as well, but this is where we put in our indoor practice facility and some other things. My history, this is my 8th year as the men's golf coach at Colorado. Before that, I was the assistant men's and women's golf coach at the University of Kansas, and then before that, I was in the same role at Vanderbilt, and went to school and grew up in Kansas. So Colorado's always been a special place for me. We've got a great group of guys. A couple of them are out practicing right now. Today's officially an off day for them as we're traveling tomorrow for a tournament. So unfortunately, I won't be here for the event this weekend, but I'll be certainly watching scores. We compete in a Pac-12 conference, which is basically, usually it has the very best teams in the country in it. Our conference and the SEC are typically the 2 conferences that are far and away better than most of the other ones. It's highly competitive. It's a lot of fun. We play a great competitive schedule. And we attract players from all over the United States and all over. We have 3 international players on our roster, which is a pretty high number for us. But usually we'll have 1, 2, 3, something like that, and that's pretty common for most. As everybody in here knows, it's an international game, so that's who we've got. I'll answer a couple of general questions too. I've got a list of ones that they had gotten to us, and then some things that we have, and I'll just read them off and then answer them. One of the questions: when should I start the recruiting process? Well, one of the things is with that, it's never too early, but it's never too late as well. A lot of people develop at different times, so I've seen lots of different things. You can start it early on to contacting schools that you're interested in or think you might be interested in, to later on in your high school or junior golf career, start contacting those schools. I think it's really important you can, and the second question kind of goes with that, so I'll answer that one first. One says, when can I start contacting college coaches, and when can they contact me back? So you can send us anything at any time. You can call us, you can write emails. Basically the rules are this: if who here is younger than the class of 2015? There's probably half of you in here, and I know Zach is. So anybody younger than that, I cannot call you, and I am extremely limited on what I can email you. I can email you about camp. I can email you a questionnaire. and an introductory email or letter. That's about the extent of it. However, you can call us anytime, and I can answer as many times as you want. The problem is, if I miss your call, I cannot call you back, and that is until July 1 before your senior year. We think that there's going to be some deregulation on that. It hasn't happened yet. To me, with how that original rule came into place, because they didn't want college coaches hassling high school kids all the time and younger. Nowadays, with phones the way they are, you know who's calling. You just ignore the call if you want to not answer somebody's call, and basically it costs everybody the same with most of the cell phone plans. So I think you're going to see some changes in that, maybe before some of you are at that age. One thing I will say is that, and this is probably one of the biggest things, I'm not denouncing recruiting services at all, but an important thing is we want to hear from the players. We want to hear from them. We don't want to necessarily, it's okay to hear from parents, but ultimately it's not the parent or a swing instructor or a recruiting service that's going to have to hit that golf shot for your son or daughter, or you, if it's in your case, you know, when it really matters. You've got to be the one that is passionate about that. So make sure you're contacting them. A lot of times, you know, we get a lot of emails, which is fine, which is good. That's a good thing. I will read every single one. I won't respond to every one, partly because we can't. But a lot of them, if you can just send information to say, if you send an introductory email, a couple weeks later you have a tournament, you just update, hey, Coach so-and-so, I shot 72, 73 in this tournament, hope you're having a good one, you know, link to the results, something like that. You know, we'll take a look at that. Those are the types of things that are important. And I think this is probably the biggest message that I'd like to send. I see a lot of people think that they've got, this is two parts, but it's kind of related. One is they think they've got to commit to a college very early. Now that might be the case for you. If you know where you want to go to a great place. Second, but you don't have to do that. That's not something that's necessarily true. Okay, you can wait for a great place. There's going to be opportunities. Right now, a lot of people think there's a signing period in November. A lot of people think that if they're not signed in November, they're not going to find a great place to go. There's another signing period that starts in April. There's walk-on opportunities in a lot of different places. Make sure that you know, you're spending all that time. We understand players develop at different times in their lives, and so our job is to help figure that out and watch that, and we're in full support of that and want to try to help people do that, even if they're not somebody we're necessarily interested in directly. The second thing with that, which ties to it, is you don't have to go to every school. So you don't need every single coach or school to like you. Like the same with us. We don't need, if we're recruiting 30 or 40 players, we don't need all of them to like us. And we really, it's to the point you want to get the right fit. You want to get the right fit for you. And so ultimately, if you're doing it right, you're going to one school. So if you find the right one, none of the other ones matter. If one school and it's the right fit for you, the right coach, right program, right academics, quality of life, then you found the place for you, and you've been successful in that. It's a little bit different. I coached women's golf for a long time. The two sports are very different in the recruiting process, I feel like. You know, most of the time, men's programs are limited on their roster spaces, no matter if they're scholarship or non-scholarship players. And a lot of women's programs are still having to reach maximum numbers. So there's usually always a better opportunity, even if it's not a scholarship situation, for you to get on at a program as a girl golfer. That gap is closing. And a lot of that is because the number of programs over the last 20 years that have been added. I don't know the exact data, but in Division I bet in the last 20 years, 50 to 60 women's golf programs have been added. That's a lot of programs to be added, and a lot of players to try to fill a lot of those spots. So that's a good thing. And what I would say too is with that is, don't let the initial process discourage you if you're a girl or boy golfer trying to figure it out. There's going to be an opportunity somewhere. I grew up in, as I mentioned, in Kansas, the town of Hutchinson, Kansas. There was a guy that played there. He didn't start playing golf until he was 23 years old. And some of you may know the name Bruce Vaughn. Well, Bruce Vaughn in 2009 won the Senior British Open. He hadn't played golf until he was 23. He was a fireman from Hutchinson, and he played at the local public course that we practiced high school at. So Everyone matures in golf at a different age, like in anything, and so keep after with that. What are the 3 most important factors when evaluating a junior golfer? You know, I'm not allowed to answer anything specific to my thoughts or to the University of Colorado specifically, but several things that are important to a lot of people. I see a lot of times players will play poorly. They worry about playing poorly. Maybe a coach is only watching them for a couple of holes, or they come to a tournament and that's a tournament maybe they don't play as well. One thing that I can guarantee all of our players that I've ever coached will have is times in their career they play bad. That's one thing I know will happen. And so what we're looking at how do you react to that? How do you compete? Do you put your head down and feel sorry for yourself, or do you find a way to play golf? Peter Jacobson, yesterday I was watching the PGA Tour broadcast, and he said something that I tell our players all the time. Mike Weir was working on the swing after he'd hit a shot. Mike Weir, who won the Masters a few years ago, and he said, looks like he's playing golf swing. It's called golf swing. A lot of people play golf swing where you're not playing golf. And there's instincts with that. There's instincts to play golf. You have to find a way to get the ball in the hole, not really worry necessarily about your technical side of your swing. Because what's important is how you're playing the game and your course management, your confidence, and your attitude, and how you carry yourself. We want to be around people that are great people, that have infectious personalities, that are trying to be great teammates, that work hard, that get good grades. You do those things at a high level, and I'm not talking about the level that you necessarily think is high, but that your peers around you and your coaches and your instructors think is extremely high, then you're probably going to be able to find somewhere to play college golf at some level. So those are a couple of things. I try to look around the country at most coaches. I think, you know, everybody looks at players differently, but I think most of them really try to take players individually. So we have what that means is we have a different group of people on our team. So we've got 10 guys. We have a couple guys that don't hit it very far, but they're great chippers and putters. We have a couple guys that hit it really far that don't practice their short game enough. So we're looking at different players, you know, different things with different players. And so we're trying to look at 16, 17-year-olds and not saying, okay, I want somebody that's long, that has a lot of power, or I want somebody that just has a great short game. We're looking at everything, okay? And so if your physical characteristics don't quite meet those things, you know, make sure you're trying to get those things in, you know, focus on your strengths, but then make your weaknesses to a point where they're somewhat strengths. A couple of players that I coached in college, one at Kansas, Gary Woodland, and another at Vanderbilt, Brant Snedeker, are probably familiar names to everybody in here. It was interesting because these are 2 players on completely different ends of the spectrum. You know, Brant's not a very long player, you know, doesn't hit it really that far offline, very good short game, extreme competitor. So people think he's the best putter in the world. I can guarantee he's a better competitor than he is a putter, which should tell you a lot. And Gary Woodland, Gary came to us and he was a basketball player. He was a very talented junior golfer, but he really wasn't very good. He played golf swing a lot, but Gary's work ethic was off the charts. But Gary could overpower golf courses. And so those 2 guys are going to play golf in 2 totally different ways, but yet they're very, very similar in their career paths and taking them. So it's very important to look at those 2 different things. If you have, you can play all different ways, and I would make sure this. Ask yourself these 2 questions. If you have some extreme strengths, if you're really long or you're a phenomenal putter, you're a great competitor, phenomenal work ethic, rely on those things. If there's things that maybe you're not quite as good at, or you have an extreme weakness, maybe you're really, really short, try to get to a point where you make that, at worst, an average, okay? Because really what I've seen players that don't develop is they have something that's a very low weakness. I don't know if that makes sense. But it's something that really holds back. They can be really good at 3 or 4 other things, but they have one weakness that's so weak that it just holds those other things back. Maybe you don't hit it very straight off the tee. Whatever it is, that could be different. It's going to be different for everybody. But if you can just get that up to an average level, everything else will improve drastically as well. So that's probably the 2 biggest things with those guys, that, especially with Brant, there's not one thing that he has that's a weakness. and probably nothing that's really average. Even for the PGA Tour, nothing's really average. Maybe his driving distance. But he's just pretty good at almost everything, and he has 2 areas he's phenomenal at. So I think some of those things are within everybody's control as well. What is the biggest difference between a good junior golfer and a good college golfer? That's a great question. I think it's probably the same as what's the difference between a good college golfer and somebody that makes it on the LPGA or PGA Tour. But most junior golfers, when they transition to college, are not prepared for the time that it takes to do everything. The schoolwork is much more intense. You're away from home in almost every occasion. You don't even know how to do your laundry. Little things like that the whole entire, little things you took for granted, you don't understand you have to do them, and there's an adjustment period there. And so the golf courses specific, I'm not even talking about golf yet, but the golf courses specifically, they're much longer. We just got done playing a golf tournament in New Mexico that the golf coach told the superintendent he wanted to cut the rough for 3 weeks. But we had trouble finding balls 10 feet off of the green. They didn't water the greens for about 3 days. All the hole locations are on knobs and corners of the greens. And I've watched guys that play in junior golf tournaments on the same golf course have a bad round that's 1 or 2 over. And I can guarantee you 1 or 2 over there during our tournament was a phenomenal round. So I think that's the biggest thing. The golf courses are much longer and set up much more difficult. So one of the things that people can do, some of the people that are kind of getting closer to the end of high school and some that are more developing, try to push yourself. Play in men's or women's amateur events where the courses are longer. It's more challenging. The players are just physically bigger, more experienced. Those types of things will help you ready for that. One of the things we do, and I know there's some Colorado junior golfers in here, we started an event that is run concurrently at the same time as our college tournament that's awarded to the top 8 point winners in the Colorado Junior Golf Association. It's officially a separate tournament, but they play the same tees and hole locations as our college players. They'll play 36 holes on a Monday, 18 on a Tuesday morning, so you're playing 54 holes in 30 hours, basically. It's very long mentally, but you get to see that test firsthand, and you can compare yourself. And we hope that it's an opportunity for those players as well to maybe gain attention from college coaches that are there, or at least tell them, hey, these are areas of my game I can compare to these college players, and maybe what I did well that I didn't know I did well, or things that I can work on, because it's important to remember to realize what you do well too. So that's a big part of it. Qualifying and the college golf format. So just in general, the format is we have team golf and individual golf running concurrently. If anybody plays high school golf, like tournaments, not matches, but tournaments, it's very similar to that. We'll have 5 players typically, and each round counts the low 4 players. And we have 10 players on our team, as I mentioned earlier. So not everybody plays every week. We will utilize sort of mini tournaments within our team to help determine who that is. And then players will be going to events based on those results, and then how they do in tournaments going forward past that. One of the things that college has is it's very important is, and I think it's basically, other than the Ryder Cup for the most part, it's the highest level of team golf that you can have, and it really is about the team. It's an individual sport, but it's really about the team, and so I think that's one of the reasons I hit on earlier. It's important to see how somebody competes. It's not just your score that's being posted up there, it's a team score. So I'm relying on you. Your teammates are relying on you. You're being held accountable by your teammates. And so it's very important that if you're making proper decisions, because if you don't, that negative side has an impact on what they do. If they want to make the NCAA tournament, if they want to win a tournament, if they want to place higher in an event. So that side of it is pretty unique for most people. And it's a lot different than college golf in the sense that it's a major step up. It's not like high school basketball or college basketball, which certainly is a jump, but a lot of those high school coaches are very similar to the college coaches. And there's a lot of great high school coaches out there, but it's not as big of a deal because it's just short season most of the time. And it's just very intense because most of the players are very similar in skill level, from 1 to 100 in every field. So that's very important. Other than practicing golf, what are some areas that I can train to prepare for college golf? I hit on it earlier, but I think really time management is huge. And I'm sure your teachers and your parents and everything have pushed that. I had a conversation last night on the driving range with one of our players about how he doesn't have as much time during the school year to practice. Well, unfortunately, he can't change that. But what he can change is how efficient his time is being used. There's 24 hours in the day for everybody. And so you've got to get your sleep, you've got to work out, you've got to go to school, you've got to get good grades, you've got to go shopping, do your clothes, have time to practice, have a social life, those types of things. That is very important. And so there's an old phrase that I always like, but it says if you want to get something done, give it to somebody who's really busy, because they know how to manage their time. And so I would say try to get involved, try to push yourself. Try to have. We had a guy play in this college, in the CGA part of our event with the college event, and I was happy to see him play because he played in a tournament in Virginia until Sunday night. Got home at like 1 in the morning. He teed off out here at 8:15 the next morning. No practice around, nothing. Right? And I'm not saying you have to fly around the country, but push yourself. Really try to see what you can handle. And so, because it's going to be coming hard and fast at you. Mike Krzyzewski is the basketball coach at Duke. Interestingly enough, he always plays every year. He plays a game on a Saturday and a game on the next day that's a road game, because he wants to see sometime in January, because he wants to see how his team handles it mentally. And usually it's a pretty tough game in a hostile environment the next day that his team has to go play. So he does that to prepare them later for the NCAA tournament. So I would highly recommend doing that. I would also recommend getting into some type of workout program. It doesn't have to be golf related. The biggest thing that I get asked, that I tell every group like this and every email I send where somebody asks me this, people say, well, I need to concentrate on golf. I'm in other sports, but is it time to concentrate on golf? These are from 14, 15, 16-year-olds. I will tell you now, do not quit other sports until you're told you can't play them anymore. There's no more valuable lesson with golf, in my opinion, if you still have the ability to play team sports, than being held accountable by your coaches and your team and your teammates. As I mentioned, Gary Woodland, I was talking to him one day about some mental things. This is when he was in college, and I said, where do you think about when it's really tough on the golf course? Where are you going in your mind and your heart? When you know you've got to hit a shot or you've got to make a putt or something like that. He said, I go back to my freshman year playing basketball. I played at a Division II school. They had a really good program. And they're in the NCAA tournament, and Gary gets fouled with no time left on the clock. They're down by a point. And he said, I'm going to the free throw line. I make one free throw, we go to overtime, we might win or lose. I miss both free throws, we lose. I make both free throws, we win. I got the gym, I got my fans, I got my family, I got my teammates, and they're relying on me. And he goes, and I hit both those free throws, and I didn't even hit the rim. He goes, and after that, everything's been easy. Okay, now, those are experiences not everyone's going to have, but you can replicate something like that. And a lot of times you don't know when that's going to happen. And so a lot of that comes from team sports, from even if athletics isn't your deal, from that side of it, if you've already specialized in golf, maybe it's some other deal that you're involved in with a team or a group or any of those things, or you do them on your own if you're not with a school. I highly encourage people to do that. Even though maybe there's a short-term loss with that, where you can't concentrate as much on your golf or something else, there's definitely a long-term gain on that. So do that as long as you can. And at the end of the day, you can't experience it, as there's probably people in here that played high school sports or even college as well. You don't get to go back and do that again, those feelings with those teams. So that's a big thing. What we'll do too, that kind of answers these questions. I'm sure there's other questions that you guys have. And Molly, I don't know what else you have on your list. If there's anything in addition, feel free to ask them. But if anybody wants to ask Molly some questions, and then I can certainly answer them for her as we're doing that. But I appreciate you guys being here too. Hopefully that's helped a little bit.
So we just ask her, then, right?
Yeah, that's officially what we have to do.
So do I have to give
We got a videotape, so.
So do I have to can you just ask me, or do I have to?
No, you can ask. If I hear it, then that's fine.
So how do you deal with growth spurts?
Well, everybody has them, right? And I think we take everybody differently. Some people will have a growth spurt and start playing great, and other people will have it and they don't know their distances, or they're not used to their clubs, those types of things. It's just part of the deal. You know, sometimes if it's with a specific program, the timing might not be good if they're ready to do something with a player. But it's just kind of part of the deal. Just work through it. You know, I think sometimes players lose confidence, but I think the biggest thing is when things happen that maybe are outside of their comfort zone, that the important thing is you have to embrace it, whatever it is. You know, if you know, ball hits car path, it goes out of bounds, you know, you can feel sorry for yourself, or you can embrace it. It's like bad weather. You can go, oh, it's bad weather, or you say, hey, you know, this is an opportunity. You know, and kind of a side note to that, interestingly enough, I was talking to Snedeker about this a couple of months ago, and last year in the British Open, he finished third, and he said all he did is a side note, all he did was try to hit this course management deal. All he tried to do was hit the middle of the green for 72 holes in the British Open. These are the very best players in the world. He finished third, okay? But in that process, he played with Tiger the last 2 rounds, and he said in the 4th round, he got some bad break in a bunker. You guys probably remember when he, you know, if you saw it, he was dinking around in there and had a foot out, and he had all types of problems, and something along there. But Brandt said he had a really bad break in there. He said it was arguably the worst break he'd ever seen on a golf course in his life. And it happened to Tiger, and he basically took himself out of the tournament. He was right in the middle of the tournament, 2 or 3 holes left. He said walking up the 18th fairway, or the next fairway, he said, you know, I was a really, really bad break back there. And he looked at me and said, you know, can't do anything about it. And he goes, you just have to embrace it. And he said he did it, he said it in such a way where he really didn't care about it. It wasn't like, hey, I just got to embrace it, you know, and act kind of flippant about it. He really, truly said, okay, that was an opportunity for him to learn. And he said, I figured out right there why that guy was the best player in the history of golf. And he said, I've told myself I have to embrace everything no matter what going forward. And so that's one of the things, that's a challenge, it's an early challenge obviously for high school players is figuring that out. Could be having a bad stretch. I've got a guy on our team right now that's never played bad golf in his life until the last few months, and so he's trying to sort that out. And it's the same thing. At the end of the day, you're going to be better. Having that attitude, you're going to be better going forward is huge. I don't think there's anything physical or technical to really work on with that. Just try to get them fit. You know, as the growth spurt sort of ends and they've got the height and the strength starts building back up, and they'll eventually get used to their body again, and more than likely hitting it a lot farther. So it's going to be a good thing at the end of the day.
Most of them are done having those growth spurts, aren't they, by college or?
Yeah, it's usually something, I don't know, as late as 16, 17 typically, I think most, and we see that fairly often with different people, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone else?
So, do coaches in general look at like IJGT scores? Is it IJGT? Is it state scores? What do they look at?
That's an interesting question. I think most coaches look at everything. As easy as it is now to have access to scores, most coaches are looking at scores all over the place. I think some events, the national events, a lot of them have been watered down quite a bit. I think it's good to play, especially the IJGT, and they do a great job. IJGT does a good job, FCWT, a lot of these tours. I think most players are ignoring local events more than they used to. You know, I've always been one, like, you know, make sure you beat up the kid down the street before you go try to beat up the kid in the city, you know, that's the toughest guy and so on. And so I think it's good to have a mix. I would say most coaches look at, like I said, most coaches look at players individually. So they might see somebody that doesn't play a national event because maybe they can't afford it, but they dominate their state. That guy's gonna, or girl's gonna be fine. I mean, they're gonna get attention of coaches. And part of that, maybe if it's, let's say you're from Colorado and there's a few, like this event's you know, it's a national graded event. Maybe there's a situation where you don't play in anything outside the state of Colorado, but maybe you're originally from Florida and your son or daughter would like to go to school in Florida. It's going to be your job to get that information to those coaches at that point, or your son or daughter's job to do that. And if they're good enough, they're going to be able to get that attention. And any coach that's really worth his or her salt is going to be able to find players like that. It's pretty easy to just look at rankings and see where players are. But I don't think that tells the whole story at all. It doesn't at all. So, I mean, I recruited a player that was, to me, the best player in the state of California, but he wasn't even ranked because he didn't have enough national tournaments to be ranked. And when he played national tournaments, he beat almost everybody in the field. So, you know, he was highly recruited. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't recruited by other people too. I don't know if that answers the question.
What kind of exercise program strength building would you recommend for high school students? And also, what other sport might be the best to participate in besides golf?
I can't really say specifically which one I think is the best. So I can answer generally, but I know that TPI, the Titleist TPI program, and I think most places around the country now they've got a strength instructor from TPI is very, very well regarded. We use many of the things. In college golf in general is used many of the things.
What is TPI?
So Titleist Performance Institute,
Okay.
and the website is mytpi.com. You can link through the Titleist website, I'm pretty sure. Nike just started a program, I believe, last year. Somebody can jump in if they remember the name of it. They've named it something too. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Those are good things. I think just general fitness, most people benefit from. And then sports-wise, I would say, you know, I've seen it all. Most of our players have played other sports. So our team has, you know, generally in college golf you'll have basketball, some football. It honestly depends a little bit where you're from and which seasons allow for it, if they want to play high school golf too. So, you know, I think basketball is an easy one because of the wintertime factor. The foreign students, a lot of them play soccer. A lot of them play handball, is a huge sport in Europe especially. So they'll play those sports. Just anything that gets them with a team and a group and fitness and
What did Tiger
all that.
play?
Tad?
Yeah, Tiger.
Oh, Tiger?
Yeah.
A lot of people think he would have been a world-class sprinter. I guess he did that.
But he never played any other sport?
He didn't in high school, to my knowledge. But the thing about him that's interesting was he was a freakish athlete to begin with. So, you know, he really didn't need to do a lot of that stuff. And one of the misnomers about Tiger is a lot of people, and this is a part of the problem where I think you've had in the last 20 years kind of this militant parent problem occasionally. I'm not saying anybody in here for sure, but like it's kind of few and far between. But people thought Earl Woods was a certain way with Tiger, and really most people that knew that situation knew that Tiger was the one that wanted to practice, that Tiger was the one that, you know, he had to get him away from golf and hang out with people and you know, develop friendships and that kind of thing. Jack Nicklaus played basketball and football, and I know he played 3 sports in high school, and I think he might have been a 4-sport letter winner in high school. In Ohio, I think Earl Palmer was the same way. Dustin Johnson was a really good basketball player in high school. As I mentioned, Gary Woodland played, he lettered in 4 sports in high school, played college basketball for a year, so, you know, any of those things are, you don't have to play in high school, I'm just saying, get involved as much as you can. It might even be in, if you're not very good at basketball, play club basketball, you know, mess around with your friends doing something, you know, something organized activity, anything that, because what happens is a lot of times is players will get uber focused in golf at too young of an age too, and then they're not kind of funneling that competitive desire as they're getting older into college when, you know, this is a great deal. College golf's phenomenal, but it's a lot of work, and most people aren't ready for that level of practice and the days that we're out there playing. And I mean, there's some bad weather that when you play a fall and a late winter, early spring schedule. I mean, we had 50-mile-an-hour winds in Arizona, if you can believe that. So at a tournament last year. So all those things they can do to prepare for that, the better.
Anybody else? No? All right, Roy, well, thank you
Thanks
so
a lot.
much. It was a pleasure talking to you, listening to your answers, and excited for a good weekend out here.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Good luck to everybody. Unfortunately, one of the things, I cannot talk to anybody when we're done, but feel free.